Hey guys. Okay, so I want to talk about the whole ACFL ICOC thing going on. The way I'm doing this with the you know recording is maybe a little pretentious, but it's the easiest way for me to get everything across without having to. I don't think if I was typing it all out, I could really get it out in a coherent fashion. This is going to be kind of rambling, and I think this format is going to suit that a little bit better than jumping from topic to topic in a forum post. So, as to the main question itself, is ACFL IC? Obviously, the post started out being a lark. It was not a serious question. He was trying to stir up some shit, but it turned into a serious discussion. So, as to the question itself, is ACFL IC? Obviously, the answer is yes. ACFL is as in character as anything else in the game. And what I mean by that is the game is not 100% IC in any facet of its of the game. ACFL, AGL, your day-to-day role play is not 100% IC. And what I mean by that is that we turn a blind eye to a lot of things because it's a game. You have to recognize that there are players, and you have to turn a blind eye to accommodate the fact that there are players behind these characters. So if somebody says, hey, I can't be there for this event, I'm occupied. You don't sit there and badger them like, what do you have going on that's more important than, the king's coronation? Um, you recognize that the player is unable to be there because they have real life things going on. When my team tells me, hey, I can't make this match, I say, okay, not a problem. I understand. You have to recognize that real life exists, and these characters aren't 100% of the time available, even for things that in character they should be there for. So that's number one. ACFL is as in character as anything else. We turn a blind eye to certain things, yes. I know Recklet at one point brought up, is there any team that, discusses strategy 100% in character, that talks 100% in character during matches on group tell and things like that? And the answer to that is obviously no. I can't speak for other teams necessarily. I do know that with the Brutes, I try to have as much in character interaction as is possible, again, within the context of the game. During the match, no, nobody is talking in character on group tell. This is standard for anything, ACFL, clan wars, whatever. When it comes to certain activities, you have to move to a less in character format in order to make the game function. Basically, it's the same reason that auction. Somebody else brought this up. Auction is a semi in character channel. It's in character in that the things that you discuss are in character, but you use out of character terminology to get across these points in an effective manner. So that's the place where ACFL is. You try to do as much as you can in character, and I do actually. With the Brutes, we do discuss strategy in character. When it's not game time, I send tells to my team. I talk to them in character. We discuss strategy in character. We discuss plans for the future in character. And when we're getting down to like 15, 20 minutes out from our match, yeah, you kind of switch to group tell and you start trying to hash things out very quickly in an OOC discussion, but that's still taking place within the context of ACFL being IC. You know, it's just easier at that point to go over, hey, you need to be spamming for this guy. You need to zap that guy. Well, not zap. Obviously Juan's not allowed in ACFL, but you get the point. Just certain mechanical discussions need to take place in an out of character format, or else it takes way too long to kind of dance around the issue. And when you're pressed for time in leading up to the match or inside the match itself, obviously group tell is one of those semi in character channels. So that's to address that point. As for the issue of people joining ACFL and not wanting to participate, or it being bad RP, quote unquote, for them to participate and play with other characters that they may not get along with so well outside of the context of ACFL. To discuss that, I need to back up a second and talk about something else. So that's going to be the next main topic. Is characters interacting with other characters that they maybe wouldn't otherwise. But to get to my feelings on that, I need to explain a little bit of history with Grush and my characters on DSL as a whole. And that is, this is not true for all of my characters, but I think that for the ones that I have played the longest and most consistently, of which Grush would certainly be one, they tend to have either started with, or in most cases, grown into becoming extensions of a portion of my personality. In small part, you take a seed of part of you, and that grows into something much more complex. So in Grush's case, while he was not always this way, he has grown into being basically my competitive side of my personality and embodying a lot of that. Like I said, he didn't always start out that way. This is slightly off topic, but some of you might remember the early days of Grush, where he was a non-clans, non-kingdom bandit, basically, running around, RPing, robbing people. And he's grown to a much more complex and much different person and character than he was in those days. And part of that is, into that competitive, all about character where he is just all about competition and fighting and, in a lot of respects, fair play. So the reason this is important is because when I talk about my feelings towards the actions of certain characters or the actions of certain players, or my general feelings on the league as a whole, it's important to realize that I'm speaking both as a player out of character and also in character, as Grush and as Philip. At least when ACFL is concerned, there's really not a whole lot of difference there in how the character and how I feel. Grushka is very different from me in a lot of respects, but at least in this area, he kind of embodies my feelings. So when I talk about things, I'm going to bounce interchangeably between, talking about the players and talking about their characters, and it's going to be equivalent, I guess. So when you talk about people joining ACFL and then, not wanting to participate with certain characters that might end up being their teammates, or not wanting to be on a team with certain owners. I think the recent or the example that got brought up from the current season is Kuramaru being on Marcal's team, I think. And of course, there was the issue from the first season of ACFL with Victus, and that was a whole debacle in itself. And the thing to remember is, presumably, I can't speak 100% for what people, players or characters, are thinking. But yes, the common thing is, yes, you have to imagine that the characters signing up for ACFL are aware of what they're signing up for and are okay with those circumstances. Roleplay is a dynamic thing. People are dynamic and not one-dimensional. So if you have a good aligned character, that doesn't mean that they never associate with bad people. That's a really weird thing that tends to come up in role-playing games, where sometimes people think that just because your character is good, you never associate with bad people, or because you're an evil person, you never associate with good people. I mean, especially in that latter case, if you're an evil person, that doesn't mean you want to associate any more with evil people than anybody else would. Especially, there's a lot of ways to be a bad person, and being a bad person, if you're a thief, that doesn't mean you want to associate with somebody that strangles babies. That doesn't make sense. And for the same reason, you can be a good person and recognize that one of your friends is maybe not so good a person. So the idea that good people and evil people are like in these totally separate social circles that would never ever interact or cross paths is a really bizarre one. It's just not indicative of real life or any kind of realistic situation. And good people are not 100% of the time good people. You have to take into account a lot of factors. And I think people get a little too hung up on the actual alignment instead of thinking of people as actual people. And sometimes, there will be bad roleplay, or people are ignoring their roleplay. But to jump to that immediately instead of assuming that there's a dynamic at play that maybe you just don't see, I think that's just bad in itself. So I don't know. Like I said, this is a little rambling. Let's look at a couple things here. Reckless said it's one of those circumstances where they're fairly exclusive to each other. I think I was referring to in character and out character spheres of DSL. Iga says ACFL definitely feels OOC. And these are two people that I typically tend to agree with, but here I don't understand why they think this. And maybe it's maybe I disagree because for my character this is just 100% in character. He has no problem. Grush has no problem associating with bad people for the sake of the competition, because he really is all about competition. That's really central to him, really important to him, and he doesn't have any difficulty separating the competition from what he does outside of the competition. And part of that is being a follower of Rage, and maybe other people don't have that same in character structure. And they could, maybe other people are breaking character to participate in ACFL. I don't know. It's probable, to be honest, but it's not something I've had to deal with myself. Something else Reckless said is that he's hoping we can find a clause where even the staunchest role players can enter into the mechanical side of things and try their hand at something like ACFL. And this is, again, something I kind of disagree with. The idea that we need to find an in-character excuse for all characters to be able to participate in ACFL. While I do think that all players should be able to participate in ACFL, I don't necessarily think that all characters are meant for it. If you have a character that is not willing to work with other people, then I don't think that you should be necessarily handed a get-out-of-jail-free card in that respect. For me, competition, whether it be AGFL or AGL, ACFL, Clan Wars to a lesser degree, I've participated a lot less in Clan Wars than I have in AGL and ACFL. But just the competitive aspects of the game in general have always been very important to me. But that doesn't mean that I participate in them with every character. My Deep Gnome, I've never participated in AGL. Not that I wouldn't want to as a player, but I recognize that it's not in character for him to participate in those events. So I simply don't do it with him. So I don't think that we necessarily need every character to be able to participate. Every player, yes. Every character, no. It should be okay for a character to say, no, I am not willing to put aside my differences and work with somebody that is in Bloodlust or is in Abaddon. And I think that's perfectly fine. I also think it's perfectly fine for characters to make judgments against other characters for the things that they do. If you are a hardline character that thinks that's wrong, I don't think there's anything that should stop you from making judgments on the characters that are in ACFL. I do think it's sort of a cultural phenomena in Algorand where there shouldn't be like a major social stigma against the people that participate. It's something that should be at least widely, if not not necessarily universally, but widely considered acceptable. It's something that people do. It's it's just a cultural phenomena and something that is generally okay. There will be exceptions, of course, people that don't think it's okay, and that's fine too, as long as the characters that are actually participating are ones that in character are okay with these things. As for the, let's say gods being mad at Kuramaru, I think it's been consistently shown throughout DSL that the gods are okay with people competing in these sorts of events and encourage it, in fact. So I don't think there's any in-character conflict there. Another example of that is, knighthood for a long time did not allow their members or their paladins to participate in events like AGL. They considered it dishonorable, quote unquote. Um, and the mob god stepped in and said, no. Nadric said, no, this is combat. Honorable. This is honorable combat. This is one man stepping in the arena with one man and engaging in a fair battle. This is basically the most honorable combat you could have, and I encourage you to accept your participation in this. This is good. So I think as far as that side of things go, characters are in the clear. You don't have to fear in character repercussions from that angle, at least. You could still, obviously, like I said, face stigma from certain characters or organizations that may not agree with what you're doing, especially in the case of Brivens or Chaos, because that hatred goes much further than any other antagonistic action in the game, really. Chaos is a whole separate issue, and so I support Shalinesti's actions, and as far as that goes. As far as this is again somewhere where as far as the players and characters that join with the intention of not participating, if they get stuck with certain players, certain teammates, or certain owners, this is where me and Grush being in sync really is important. When you sign up for ACFL, you're basically sort of making a contract with the Delnichis and with the league owners that say, by signing up for this draft, I am agreeing to participate in the process regardless of what happens, who I end up with, or what have you. And if you don't do that, there is a system in place for handling that, which is, you can be removed from the league, placed on the disciplinary list, and you're unable to rejoin with that character or any other for a season or two. In addition to that, there's potentially, further issues that you have to run afoul of, which is the Delnichis themselves. I think they have shown through, forced contender matches, the assassinations of characters for characters that refused, or that kind of vanished off the face of the earth and didn't participate in their championship defenses, or didn't participate in the championship fights that they were being compelled to fight in by the Delnichis through the contender system. When you sign up, you should recognize, either as a player or as a character or both, that if you don't participate in the system, you're risking the wrath of the Delnichis, who have shown themselves to have the reach and the power to perm kill you. Whether or not that would ever actually happen with the ACFL, I don't know. But you should recognize that there are consequences for trying to subvert the system. So as a character, as Grush, I think that if you do try to subvert the system in that way, then there are going to be consequences. You will be removed from the league at best, and that's the best case scenario you should hope for, is that you're going to get kicked out of the league for several seasons. And as a player, I do think that is sort of scummy. You are negatively affecting not just the owners. You're also negatively affecting your potential teammates. Um, the rest of the people that are actually playing and participating in the league. You're negatively impacting the spectators. The rest of the mud that wants to see a good competitive season. With everybody on an even footing, or is maybe not an even footing necessarily, but a fair footing, where owners aren't getting screwed out of players that either in character or out of character are only willing to play or participate with one team, or aren't willing to participate with a team, whichever way. So I do think that in itself is really a crappy thing to do. Ahead of time the situation that you're placing yourself and others in. And again, that in character, or you should know that in character, unless you're playing somebody that is just very, very ignorant. If you're role playing a very ignorant person, then that's fine, and that's whatever. But you should know that what you're doing is unacceptable, really. I mean, you're putting a lot of other people in a very uncomfortable position, and if you're okay with that, then I mean, I guess that's on you. Again, I do think that your role play may preclude you from joining with that particular character, but it doesn't mean that you have to be precluded from joining with other characters. And I don't think you necessarily have a right to join if your character is not okay with what they're going to be dealing with. I don't think if you have a character that is a very peaceful person, let's say Jiniki, who was a priest of Kadia that literally quested her way to 51. Like, didn't kill a single mob ever. Just ground out experience through quest 51. Would you think that she has a right to say, it's not fair that my RP precludes me from participating in AGL? No, I mean, that would be absurd. You're accepting with your RP that you can't participate in certain facets of the game, and that's fine. That's great for you if that's something that makes you happy. But at the same time, I don't think that gives you the right to shit on other people who do want to participate. So, there's something else I had a note about. Lothaw said, no hard feelings. I have no particular stake in the ACFL issue itself, but really admit it's a peeve of mine that the game has several areas where OOC concerns trump IC ones, and you're expected to adapt your RP to suit it if you bother with it at all. Otherwise, you're a selfish jerk by not doing what everyone else wants. So, I think I just answered a lot of that a moment ago, but to reiterate, the game does not owe you by being forced to adapt to your roleplay. Your roleplay is your roleplay, and that's fine. But saying that OOC concerns trump IC ones just because your roleplay is preventing you from participating in a system that's good for other people, that to me is selfish. I don't understand the sentiment behind that. It's just really weird to me. So I guess that sums it up. That about sums up my feelings on this whole situation. And so to sign off, I'm going to take a little parting shot at Persia Dark, who mentioned perm death for people that kind of buck the system, as it were. And Persia, I love you, but you're the last person to be recommending perm death for other people. Boom.